Have you heard the saying, it is better to give than to receive? How many of you heard that before? How many of you believe it? It's better to give than to receive. At Christmas time, we receive a lot of gifts, but we also give a lot of gifts too. And what I've realized about gift givers is there's different kinds of gift givers. And I'm going to name a few, and you see if these apply to you. Okay, for example, there's the procrastinating gift giver. This person waits until the very last minute and sometimes stops on the way to the party in order to buy the gift. You know that because it's not really in any kind of wrapping paper, and it might still have the price tag on it. Speaking of the price tag, some people are the expensive gift givers. Everything they get has to be expensive because they're trying to prove something, or they're trying to buy your affection or approval. Anybody ever experienced that? You're like, I'm okay with that. Some people don't know what to give, right? And so it's just easier. These are the cash givers, right? Maybe even the gift card givers. You know, usually like uncles and aunts and things, they don't know what to give you, so here's $100. People are like, wait a minute, what kind of family do you come from? Or maybe it's a $5 bill. Whatever it is, it's just cash because they figure, look, you go buy what you want. There's another kind of giver, and I don't want to see any elbows flying here, but this is the giver who gives you the gift that they want. Are you right? It's like, oh, look what I got you for Christmas. It's a new set of golf clubs. Or they get you tickets to the show that they want to see. That kind of giver. And then there's really the best kind of giver. It's the one who puts some thought into it. This person doesn't need a list because they've been paying attention to what you've said over the past year, the things you've been interested. When you've walked around the stores and pointed to different items, they're taking mental notes. Maybe they even put it in their notes app. Oh, they want this, you know. And they don't let on at all about what it's going to be. And when it comes time to open that gift, it's a true surprise because it's a thoughtful gift. And by the way, probably doesn't cost a lot of money, or sometimes doesn't cost any money. It's a true gift from the heart. Today I want to talk about the ultimate gift giver. A person who gave just the right gift at just the right time, just what you needed at that time, and the person who can give you something that nobody else could give you. And that's Jesus. By the way, the phrase, it is better to give than to receive, that's what Jesus said. That's where we get that. Christmas is a celebration of the arrival of Jesus. And the truth is, sometimes we forget that. But the busyness that goes with the holidays, the parties, the shopping, all the good deeds that we do, all the extra church services that we do, it's easy to lose sight of what Christmas is really all about. It's simply about the arrival of Jesus. Christmas is about the introduction of hope into a world full of trials and tribulations. It's about the introduction of peace into a terribly fallen world. And for us, it can and should be a wonderful time of the year. But if we step back and consider for a second, what was Christmas like for Jesus? Less than wonderful. Less than amazing. As a matter of fact, it was very difficult. And we have to ask that question because without Jesus, there is no Christmas. He gave up his heavenly home to become a child, to become a boy, then to grow into a man. And he endured an extremely challenging set of circumstances, often mentally and physically and painful, in order to bring you the best gift. And so what I want to do is share with you why Jesus is the ultimate gift giver in 3 ways. Number one, he was the ultimate gift giver because he gave up his comfort. If you're taking notes, you can write that down. He gave up his comfort. Take a look on the screen for a second. This is from Philippians chapter 2, verses 6 and 7. It says, who though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men. Paul writes to a church just like ours in the town of Philippi, and he says, Jesus was equal with God, all of the power, all of the majesty, but he purposely emptied himself of those things so that he could come to this world and take on the form of a human man. And he came to this earth in a very unexpected way. Though he was royalty, there was no procession. Though he was king, there were no foreign dignitaries to meet him. Jesus' announcement was made to common shepherds in the field, and his first crib was a trough that was used to feed animals. Let's look again at Luke chapter 2, verse 7. It says, "And she gave birth to her firstborn son and wrapped him in swaddling clothes and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn." Now, the truth is, it wasn't really like a hotel like we think of. A lot of times you'll see a Christmas play, and one of the characters in the Christmas play is the innkeeper. And unfortunately, the innkeeper is the guy who pointed and said, "There's no room for you here, go out into the barn." But the truth is, in the first century, most homes were 2 stories, and the animals lived on the first story, and the people lived on the second story. And so there was no room for them in the part of the house where the people were, so they had to stay where the animals were. And the manger was like a stone trough that was used to feed animals. Not a very comfortable place for a baby, not a very sanitary place for a baby either. And unfortunately, Jesus' early life didn't get more comfortable as he aged. After the wise men visited him, after the Magi came, they worried for his safety. They were warned in a dream that he was in danger, and so they told the parents, and Joseph and Mary took Jesus to Egypt when he was a boy. King Herod had issued an order to kill all male boys aged 2 and younger. Jesus was a refugee in a far away land, away from family. Joseph and Mary away from friends. Now, we don't know much about his home life when he was a child or when he was a teen or young adult, but we know that during Jesus' ministry, he was essentially homeless. He didn't have a comfortable place to live. He didn't have a place where he could kick back and relax and feel safe. He went from place to place, from house to house. It says in the book of Luke, chapter 9, verse 58, Jesus said, "Foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head." Can we just agree on something for a moment? It was not easy to be Jesus. He didn't take the easy path. Instead, he chose the hard road. He arrived at a chaotic and dangerous time in history. He was born into political chaos and turmoil. He was part of a very controversial family. If you remember, Mary became pregnant by the Holy Spirit while she was engaged to be married to Joseph. That was very, very controversial at that time. Joseph had every right to divorce her. He didn't. Instead, the angel told him what was going on. This is something that God is doing. And I'm sure there was a lot of talking. I'm sure there was a lot of gossip. Then Jesus grew up, not as a prince or a king. He was a common worker. He was a tradesman carpenter. He experienced the hardships, the sorrow, the pain, just like any other man in his day. Jesus gave up his comfort. That was his first gift. He gave up his rightful place in heaven. He gave up his throne. Yeah. And what a gift that is to us. Without it, we wouldn't be able to understand what giving is all about. I know that Jesus was the ultimate gift giver because he also gave up acceptance. Yes. He gave up acceptance. Look at the screen here, John chapter 1, verse 11. It says, he came to his own, and his own people didn't receive him. It feels good to be accepted, doesn't it? It feels good to be welcomed into a place. Somebody told me the other day that they loved LifePoint because they felt accepted. I hope that's your experience. I hope that you feel that you can come into this place and you can be as accepted as any other person here, that you'll be welcomed into this family. That's our goal as a church. We want you to be in this place. We want to take that spiritual journey with you. We don't want you to feel like you don't belong here. But Jesus was often rejected. The prophet Isaiah, 700 years before Jesus was born, predicted that Jesus would be despised and rejected. Some people thought that he was crazy. Other people accused him of being a sinner. And some people thought he was demon-possessed. The irony of that statement. Several times, people tried to take him by force and stone him. You would think that somebody who went around teaching and healing and forgiving sins and speaking encouraging words would be widely accepted. And to some, yes. But for many, his healing and his forgiving and his speaking was a threat to the religious systems that those people had created. And it makes sense that some of the religious leaders would scorn him. After all, he was bringing good news to the people, and that was a threat to their money-making system that they had devised. But in a place where he should have been accepted most, and this blows my mind, in his own family, Jesus was rejected. It's crazy to think that his own brothers and sisters didn't even believe he was the Messiah. In the book of Mark one time, they sought to take custody of him because they said he was not in his right mind. Like the first century version of Baker acting somebody. Let us take him out of here because he is insane, they said. His own family.
Wow, that's good.
Now let me tell you something. You might know what it's like to be rejected by family. Sometimes the holidays bring that feeling out more than any other time of the year. Might be a father, a mother. Could be a son or a daughter. Could be sisters, brothers. And they've rejected you, and you have to confront that reality at the holidays because the holidays are about family. And if you've gone through that, if you've felt rejected, then I want you to know, Jesus knows what that feels like. Intensely. One of the most difficult parts is crossing over that boundary to recognize the fact that even though you're rejected sometimes by people on this earth, you are never rejected by Jesus Christ unless you turn away from him. If you want a relationship with the Father, you are welcomed into that relationship. I know that Jesus was an amazing gift giver because he gave his life. He gave his life. And really, there's not much more you can give. He entered into this world. He entered into a sinful place. And from the beginning, people wanted to take his life from him. Later in his ministry, he was under constant threat of death. He didn't have any bodyguards. He didn't have any protection. Finally, when he was ready, he willingly gave himself over to the Roman authorities to face trial. Now, this was no surprise. Actually, was part of his plan from the very beginning. And know this, Jesus' sacrifice of his life was 100% voluntary. He gave his life. He even said this in John chapter 10. He said, I lay down my life. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down, and I have authority to take it up again.
Glory.
And truthfully, that's the true meaning of Christmas. If Jesus had not submitted to the will of the Father and given his life as a sacrifice for us, there would be nothing special about his birth. I'm sure there were plenty of teenage moms in the first century who gave birth to illegitimate children, and some might have even put their babies in a manger. Some of them probably grew up and faced incredible hardship and scorn just the same as Jesus. But Jesus was the one who gave his life and was raised to new life and took his life up again. And really, that's what makes Christmas special. Without the cross, Christmas is irrelevant. Without the resurrection, it's powerless. Jesus gave the ultimate gift, a gift that nobody else can give. It was the ultimate sign of love. He even said, greater love has no man than this, than someone laid down his life for his friends. And that's what Jesus did for us. As I wrap up this message, I want to play something for you. Some of you know I have a devotional radio show for children. And I've been doing that for years and years and years. And sometimes the kids get to call in and ask a question that I can answer. And this is one of the questions I got last week. Take a listen.
My name is Jude, and my dad is always telling me that Christmas is just Jesus' birthday. And then I wondered, why do we get presents but not Jesus?
That's a great question, isn't it? It's Jesus' birthday. That's what Christmas is, but we get the presents. The question might be, well, what does Jesus want for his birthday? What does he want? I mean, the last time he got presents, I think were when the Magi brought the presents, right? If it's Jesus' birthday, my question to all of us is, well, what will we give him for his birthday? I mean, what do you buy the King of the universe? Does he want some AirPods? The truth is, there's nothing you can buy. What's interesting is when the Magi came to visit Jesus, they brought 3 gifts. Now, we don't know how many wise men there were. We sing the song, We Three Kings, but it's because they brought 3 gifts that we just assume maybe there was 3 wise men. The gifts were myrrh, frankincense, and gold. And you think, those are strange gifts to bring to a child. Like maybe some toys would be more appropriate for a toddler, like a rocking horse or something. But as it turns out, those gifts are significant, and they serve as a wonderful example for us on what we should give. See, when the Magi brought the gift of myrrh, myrrh is a spice, and it's a spice that's used in preparing people for burial. The very spice that was used on Jesus' body when he was placed in the tomb. Myrrh represents the gift of sacrifice. It represents the gift of giving everything. Later in the Bible, Paul wrote, I beseech you, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God. Our gift this Christmas should be sacrifice back to Jesus. Yes. Not once, but every day. The gift of frankincense, well, that is an incense. It's something that would have been burned during worship services, especially throughout the Old Testament. It gives off a fragrant odor. Frankincense represents the gift of worship. Have you ever thought about giving Jesus the gift of your worship? You're thinking, well, what does that mean? I don't even sing. I can't play an instrument. Worship is way more than just singing. Worship is placing Jesus Christ at the center of your life so that everything you think, everything you do, and everything you say revolves around him as the center of your life. This Christmas, let me encourage you to give the gift of worship. A gift that only you can give to the King. And the last gift was gold. You think, okay, now we're talking. I'll take the gift of gold. Well, understand this. Gold has always been a precious commodity. It's difficult to get a hold of, and it's valuable. And it was it was something that people would bring anytime they visited a king. They would bring the gift of gold. For the Magi, it was recognizing this child as the king. Remember, they said to Herod, we saw his star, the king's star. And we want to worship him. This Christmas, will you give Jesus the gift of making him king in your life? Maybe you're the kind of person who you enjoy a lot of what Christmas is about. You enjoy the gifts, you enjoy the decorations and the songs and the movies and all that goes along with it, but you've never really accepted that true gift and made Jesus the king of your life. Christmas is about giving, and Jesus gave to us. He gave up his comfort, he gave up his acceptance, and he gave his life. Will you give your life to him. Let's pray.